Hello again. I am Chris Lee of Southeastern 16. This is the mid-August episode of SEC Baseball Weekly. I'm joined as usual by my co-hosts Graham Doty and Alfred Ezman. We are going to talk about the NCAA rule changes for baseball for the 2025 season, changes to the SEC tournament format for 2025, and finally some renovation news in Knoxville concerning the ballpark there. We'll hit on all three of those topics. Before we do, reminder, our content is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football, from the preseason NFL to college football kicking off. BetOnline has got every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads when the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner take all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the coming season. I won one once, but it wasn't $300,000. When the game is over, head on to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today, use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. Alfred Ezman, our resident Tampa Bay Rays fan, rocking the old school hat today. Graham rocking the Paul Skeens special there. I don't have my Brave stuff on today, which I should because they're on a heater now suddenly. But that aside, let's get into rules. Alfred, give us the 4 or 5 big things that will change for next year. If you want to add a little commentary, feel free to do it, and then we'll get into some discussion about all of it.
Yeah, I wish the Rays were on a heater, but besides the point, we'll just get into the rules. So we have to skip that. So we can skip that conversation.
You have Junior Caminero.
Right. Something to be excited about. But yeah, a lot of rule changes. The main thing we talked about it right before we got on, expanded bat testing is, I think, the biggest takeaway from this. The NCAA now will require bat testing to be conducted the day before each game. Previously, it was conducted before each series, and then Chris, like you were saying, mid-series, some tomfoolery, I'll say, may have been conducted by teams with their bats and whatnot. Now it's before each game is played. This is just, officiating, trying to get a handle on bats, bat changes that may be made that are illegal. This was a big conversation in the Tennessee Vanderbilt series years ago when that whole fiasco was going on in 2022 with that team. I think it was Jordan Beck. They were questioning his bat, whether or not it was legal or not. But this is just to, get a handle on checking bats before each game rather than each series. Changes in the pitch clock as well. The pitch clock now requires the pitcher to be alerted before with 12 seconds prior. I think it was 10 seconds before. So a little bit more time now with the pitch clock. That can only help, I think, honestly. I mean, more time for the pitcher to kind of lock in and get ready, as well as the batter. And it's not that. And if people who don't like it as long, it's 2 more seconds. I don't think it's really that big of a deal anyway. So a little bit of a change there. Also, sticky stuff ejections. That was another big thing. Pitchers will serve now a 4-game suspension with sticky stuff being used. That's, obviously they're trying to crack down on that as much as they are with bats. The biggest thing with this in the story that was quoted from that, J.D. Thompson was ejected for foreign substance use. Christian Maracna for Georgia had some stuff manipulating with his glove, and he didn't get suspended. So there was some disconnects there with, how that was handled. And I think this will kind of help, get the point across that no matter what substance you use, if it's in your glove, on your neck, anything you use is a 4-game suspension, point blank, period, end of story. And then other news as well. Some other ones, I don't know if these are as big, but relief pitchers after an injury or an ejection can warm up in the bullpen instead of the mound. Yeah, kind of whatever there, but it's just a weird change that we'll see. We might not see the pitcher come out beforehand. Pitchers can take an extra step now in their windup as long as they don't go toward home plate. They can take a little hop. They can take a little gather step or whatever prior to throwing the ball. Previously, those may have been called balks more often than not. Now it's legal. You can, take an extra step in your windup as long as you don't progress toward home plate. Other rules as well. They're double first base options. We saw that in the SEC tournament. Those can be used now as an option in any game. I think it'll be if both managers prior agree to using it, it will be used. It's a good safety thing. I mean, if that's one takeaway from it. I think, and again, we could see a lot of games this year where managers on both sides decide, hey, we want to use this for the safety of our guys and whatnot. That's another rule change there. Bat hitters now do not have to stay in the batter's box in between pitches. They can step out and stuff. I like that. I mean, I think that's just, more often than not, I think it's better for baseball if a hitter can take his time outside. Again, the pitch clock is still in place, so these hitters have to be ready 12 seconds prior to a pitch. But now they get extra time and whatnot. And those were the major changes I saw. There are many others that I'll let Graham touch on as well. But, I like the whole both sticky substance and the batting and the bats issue being handled. I mean, I think it's better. It's more, officials can now check that more often than not. And with the sticky stuff, like I said, I mean, it's a no-no for anybody who uses it, regardless of who it is. And it's a really big penalty because that pitcher's gone for an extended period of time, especially if we, get into the NCAA tournament time and a 4-game suspension is issued. That's a huge deal, especially if it's in Omaha where you have consecutive games on top of each other, then that pitcher can't play. So just more cracking down on illegal stuff being used throughout the game.
Graham, your reaction to all the stuff the NCAA did?
Yeah, Alfred, great job going over everything. Some of my reactions are just how much will they actually reinforce a lot of this stuff, especially with the bats. I mean, I feel like the offensive numbers the last few years have ticked up pretty dramatically. And, some of that depends on the ballpark and where you play and everything. But, I mean, if they really crack down on that, what will that look like moving forward? Yeah. So I'm fascinated by that. And just if something does happen, what will that look like? I mean, how much of an impact will it have for a team, a specific player, the head coach, that kind of thing, suspensions being involved. So I'm absolutely fascinated with that. And as far as like the baseball goes, I feel like that's really every level of baseball as far as pitchers, just trying to get a good grip. Remember, not that long ago, it was what was it, Spider Tack with with Major League Baseball pitchers, and Trevor Bauer literally made a video about it on social media where you like melt it down and just put it on the ball and your fingers and everything. So that's always going to be in the game of baseball. Again, how much will they reinforce that and crack down on it? Who knows? We'll see. Curious about the double first base, like how many teams will dive into that. That's not just an SEC rule. That is all of college baseball. And Alfred touched on it. It was kind of the guinea pig run at the SEC tournament. Nobody really seemed to complain about it at the SEC tournament. So again, that's more of a safety thing. So I'll be curious to see how many teams in the SEC in the country do that. The big one for me, and Alfred, you kind of touched on it, and I'm in the state of Mississippi. One of the big things this past season was the Georgia-Mississippi State series. Do you guys remember there was a 45-minute delay, 45 minutes. And all it was the play at the plate with Mississippi State catcher Johnny Long, and just so many people went on the field, and it was just trying to sort it out, who gets suspended, who does not get suspended. That's why most of these rules that you see and most of the language and the verbs and words and everything, it involves this stuff. And it's because of that weird sequence in start ball. And the big one is relief pitchers only get suspended 2 games now and not 4, because that was a huge deal for both Mississippi State and Georgia, because it was so truly bizarre. I mean, imagine going to a game and then there's just a 45-minute delay and there's no punches thrown, nobody was hit by a pitch, anything like that. So that you can put an asterisk by that, and okay, this is the Mississippi State Georgia rule from this past season. So those are kind of the things that jump out to me.
I feel like the changes were very, reactionary. Here's what I mean. You had J.D. Thompson at Vanderbilt caught with the substance. You had the Maracna thing. You had the fight. Feels like a lot of time and effort was spent into the things that were public facing. I think privately, a lot of people think that the conditions, whether it's, tampered bats, whether it's and it could be a lot of things, right? The ball could be more juiced. It could be a lot of things. I don't always attribute things to one cause, but the people I talk to privately and look at the offensive numbers. I mean, we're in the BB core era. These things are supposed to hit like wood. the numbers do not demonstrate that we're hitting whatever the condition is, like bats performing. And again, some of that could be baseballs. I don't know if the NCAA used baseballs for offensive, but it feels like what the NCAA did, and I'll get to some things that I think where I could see an impact and some things that maybe I like, but it feels like what the NCAA did is it took the few things that were forward facing right in front of people, and it said, okay, pitcher gets caught, he gets suspended, coach gets suspended. The warm-up rule, I'm not sure if Alfred touched on that or not. That happened when J.D. Thompson got caught. Chris McIlvain came into warm-up, rushed it, threw out his back, was out for, I don't remember, a month or 6 weeks. So they addressed that, saying that a guy gets more time to warm up. And then the fight thing that you mentioned, that got addressed. I feel like something has to be, I feel like if maybe they caught somebody red-handed with the tampered bat and it was public, maybe that would have gotten addressed more. But it feels to me like what the NCAA did was more reactionary to what the public can see. And I'm not saying that's bad, but when I read it at first, it's like, wow, and I'll give you an example. If a kid gets caught with a tampering with the ball, the coach gets kicked out. If the kid gets caught using a legal bat, what's the penalty? It's an out and no suspensions. That seems unequal, but that just feels like, to me, that's what they've done, is they've dealt with what's in front of people and been very reactionary. And I can't figure out why, to me, the penalties for bat tampering and ball tampering are different.
Yeah, I think it's very strange, and obviously it's not, it wasn't fair under any stretch, and I think it's better because it needed to be cracked down upon, and I think a point will get across. And the biggest thing, and I'll say it again, it's just the fact that it's before every game now, as opposed to, oh well, we did it Friday before the game, and now have fun the rest of the weekend. I think it's a lot better, just because they are definitely under the rug. There were definitely cases where the bats were definitely, there was some funny stuff going on with what teams did with their bats, and even pitching. I won't limit it to just the bats, even pitching as well. So I just think it's better. It's a lot more expanded upon. That there are ejections, suspensions, depending on whether it's a relief pitcher or a starting pitcher, that will be handed out as well, that are way more extensive, than what it would be before. And it's just going to end up better. And I know it's like a no fun thing, but at the same time, it's about the integrity of the game. And the NCAA did the right thing here with doing this. And they did it at a good time too, during this kind of dead season we have. And it's enough time for these teams to address it.
Another thing I don't like, guys, and you look at the past few years, let's look at instances where people got caught with something that was out of regulation. You had the Willie Weiss thing at Michigan. I don't remember if that was an opposing coach that called out. That was not an SEC thing. Jordan Beck got in trouble because his bat didn't have the sticker on it. Mason Land at Auburn got caught without a sticker. That was an out back in a game. I think that was before the Beck incident in Nashville. There was the J.D. Thompson incident last year where he got caught with sticky stuff, got kicked out. And there was the Maracna incident, which didn't result in a suspension. It was just that bullpen camera. And look, nobody can prove it, but, you tell me, that looked awfully suspicious. But throw
just a little.
Just a little. Throw the Maracna thing out. The common denominator, and throw the Weiss thing out because I'm not sure, but the common denominator, all those other ones, is it was somebody else calling something out. And working backwards in J.D. Thompson's case, it was Kevin O'Sullivan saying something to the umpire. A multi-minute inspection ensued. He got thrown out of the game. In the Beck case, it was, I think, a Vanderbilt player or coach calling out the bat for not having the sticker, which was out of protocol. And in the A&M case, it was Troy Claunch, their catcher, I remember, pulled the Mason Land bat and said, hey, no sticker. Common denominator here is the umps called none of this on their own. It was all up to a player or a coach in the other dugout, and I've never liked that. It feels to me like they haven't really wanted to catch anybody. And the one issue I have, I've talked about, I think that the bats and balls thing is a little bit out of whack. I don't understand why the penalties aren't more equal, but I will tell you this. Why not do what MLB does? Every time a pitcher comes in the game or comes out of the game, check the glove, check the hands. Why are they not doing that? Why every time a batter comes to the plate, look at the sticker, have them hand the bat to the umpire? I mean, they could have done barcodes. That would have done better. It feels to me like a lot of this is reactionary, and they don't really want to catch people. That's the very cynical point of view. Now, I'll present you a side later where I think some of this stuff could help. But when I first read it and had a little time to sink in, I'm like, why is the onus on the other dugout to catch everything? And God help you if you're wrong. I mean, that's a bad spot to put everybody in. I don't get it.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, and just think about Major League Baseball as far as the pitching and those inspections. It was a big deal the first month or two of the season. Now I just feel this is part of the game. So and it just is what it is, and nobody really puts up a fight with it anymore unless you're Max Scherzer. But I mean that's easy to do if you're college baseball, if you're the SEC, make that a thing to do. But Chris, you made a good point. There's already a lot on college baseball umpires, and especially in the college game, this is not their full-time job. Like most of these guys have other jobs. They're not in a union or anything like that. So there's already so much on them. Like, why can they handle much, this much more stuff on them, which is why you see other teams do it. But like you said, if you do it, you got to get it right. You can't mess it up or miss it.
I would have an extra umpire, and not even umpire. I would have somebody, an extra official at the game, and take this off the umpires. Say, all right, your job is when a batter comes to the plate, give me your bat. Let me take a look at it for 5 seconds. Make sure the sticker's there. Make sure nothing looks fishy. And I would have the same umpire every time a pitcher comes off the field. All right, I say umpire, it doesn't have to be check the hands, check the glove. Why is that so hard? I mean, maybe you don't want to do it for Morehead State and Tennessee Tech in midweek because of expense. I don't know. But I think when you're playing SEC series, to me, that's a no-brainer. And I just we could put a man on the moon, but we can't think of an easier way to fix this, and I don't get it. Some would say we didn't, but I'm not in that camp.
No, it would be totally much more easy, and he could sit where the ball boy does. I don't, something as simple as that, and it's not really as extensive. We saw in the SEC tournament this past year, it was for a different reason, but they had extra umpires out. That was because of the LSU South Carolina fiasco, that happened with that game. But they had them out there, just to watch the foul line and whatnot. If they could put 2 umpires out there for that, they can do it for the SEC tournament or big SEC series. They could definitely do it for the NCAA tournament, and I think they would have to. But it's something that's very easily done and manageable. And I think it's if you're an umpire, if I'm on an umpire team, let me be the check the bat and check the glove guy, because you don't have to. You just sit there half the time anyway. So it's not a bad idea. I like it a lot. And like Graham said, I mean, if they're going to do this, they have to get it right. But they've put it in place early to get everyone adjusted to it.
The concern with the exit velocities, that's a continual I'm just waiting for somebody to get really hurt. Line drive back to the pitcher, foul ball in the stands. I think that's the one. Now, what will happen is when there's something 115 off the bat that hits somebody and causes damage. That's when everything will change. But, and I think that's people's beef with some of the EVs and stuff. It's just the fear somebody's going to get hurt. Now, I will tell you, I think the every game bat testing is going to help. I think that there were some, I think I've been told, I'm not naming names, there were some matters taken into own hands between coaches and umpires. And I think there was a little bit of regulation that went under the radar in the middle of some of these series last year. I'm not reporting. I'm just telling you that's been in the air. And that was interesting. But I think you could see the every game bat testing make a difference in clamping down on some things. Again, I think it's just up to people to check stickers if they're there.
You got to be consistent. That's the main thing. I mean, have to be consistent. And like you said, I think people can live with the midweek games, like Tuesday, Wednesday games. If you don't want to have an extra umpire or whatever, okay, I get it. But be consistent with conference games and postseason games.
And excuse my voice, I've got a cold this week, and it is catching up to me as we do this. The double first base thing, like it or not like it? I'll start with you, Alfred.
I like it. I mean, like Graham said, I also didn't really hear anyone complain about it. I think if people that did, it's just, it looks weird, blah, blah, blah. This is what people use. If you're not playing an official baseball game of some kind and it's just rec league stuff, they use that constantly all the time. And I understand this isn't rec league. This is NCAA college baseball, but it's for a safety thing is why they use it for rec league stuff. And it's the same case here. I mean, I think it'll only help. There's a lot of, with the kind of athletes we have now, collisions. I think if they happen, they could do more damage, particularly a baseman's leg if they step on the ankle wrong, or even a runner's leg if he takes a bad step because of the baseman's ankle or whatnot. That there's a lot that can go wrong there, and I think this just helps. I mean, I think the weird thing maybe is turning towards second, how you would run there, maybe, but other than that, that's something, again, we're doing this, and this was decided mid-August. The teams are going to have a ton of time during their fall scrimmages and practices even before the season and whatnot, getting used to that, and it'll help. I mean, I think it was a big thing, one of the biggest stories heading into the SEC tournament, and it did nothing but, help, and I think it helped too with replays, as well, because it's just not as, I think you create better angles looking at a replay.
I agree.
The feet, being more split apart than they would on a singular base. And it's gonna be weird at first, but I think over time and really just during this next season, it'll be good. And a lot of people will catch on to it. And I'm a fan. It's probably the biggest thing out of all these rule changes I'm a fan of, to be honest.
I won't lie. Initially, that was my first thought. This is going to look weird. And I was thinking, okay, this looks like slow pitch softball or something.
Yeah.
But if it eliminates injuries and it improves safety, I'm all for it. I mean, as an Ole Miss fan, Tim Elko tore his ACL on a play at first base on a collision. And if the double bag at first base would have been a thing back then, would that have happened? Who knows? But that's the point. They want to eliminate plays like that. So I'm for it. I promise you, at the SEC tournament, if it would have been a bad thing, you would have heard from the players and the coaches big time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in favor of things that make the game safer, that don't really sacrifice quality. I'm more of a tradition. Well, I say I'm a traditionalist. I'm fine with the DH, but like the home plate collisions, that changed the trajectory of Buster Posey's career.
Yeah.
You hate to see stars removed from the game and then go later, what could have been? And hey, you make little changes. And I think the first base bag, I mean, you will see occasionally a first baseman break a wrist on one of those plays, or maybe a base runner separate a shoulder or sprain an ankle. To me, even if it's just a couple of those a year, if you can, by rule change, get those out. Now, I think Alfred, you talked about the turn to second. I think in those cases, a player is allowed to use the bag in a normal fashion. So that doesn't really affect it. I think it's just if it's kind of a play. Now, where it might make a difference, I guess, is if a guy's trying to beat out a play at first and then the throw goes – into right field or past first, and he's got a chance to take second. All of a sudden, you've got that wider turn, and you've got maybe a first baseman to contend with. So maybe it makes that play a little more difficult, but all in all, I'll take the trade-off. Anything in the rules changes we didn't get to that's worth the discussion here, guys, before we move on to SEC tournament format?
I guess the other biggest things, the one we didn't really touch on as much is the communication devices electronically, the pitch comms. I think they changed it to where any player and base coaches can have those as well. I think that makes it easier communicating, what you're going to do. The traditional way of doing this is you have a card with you, that tells you what you're going to do against this batter in the lineup and stuff that fielders have. Now the fielders have the choice of having that comm. You can hear the pitch coming, and obviously if you've watched film, you know what certain batters will do when that pitch comes and whatnot. And I think it's a good way to do it. Tablets, other electronic devices outside of that, I think are still suspended, not banned, not, up for use. But the idea that the pitch com can be used across, every fielder out there, I think it's just better communication wise. And it's just, a product of 2024 going on 2025 with what we can do with technology and stuff and how the game's changing as a whole. So that's another big rule change that I kind of like, just, because it eases out the way you can communicate with everyone on your team and even your coaches at the bases, which is huge.
Mm-hmm. And potentially, I mean, that's got a chance to speed the game up a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. Like you won't have the meetings on the mound where the entire infield will come in as well. So, Chris, I kind of feel like Vanderbilt was ahead of the curve on this. I remember not that long ago, they were one of the first teams I remember. It wasn't Apple Watches, but they had the watches where they get the ball and it tells you what pitch is about to be thrown and the location, and everybody would just look at their wrist. And I feel like Vanderbilt was one of the first ones to do this.
Yeah, they were way out in front of everybody else in terms of positioning and things like that and stuff, all within the rules. But I think now with just the explosion of data, like even run of the mill programs have made an investment in that. So I think everybody's, pretty much on the same. Now, look, there was talk of things being hacked here and there, and there was a lot of stuff thrown around last year. I don't know if all it was true. I had somebody that was affiliated with one program tell me, like, we've been accused of stuff that, like, we don't even have the capability to do. So, take that for what it's worth. I think there was a lot of stuff in the air last year. The Schlossnagel remark, a lot of people started pointing fingers. It's this guy, it's that guy, it's those guys. And that was another crazy thing. So that may be the next frontier is, making sure that the technology is tamper proof. But hey, that's a little past my pay grade at this point. So
I think
I don't know how all that works.
I think the Schlossnagel stuff, I don't think that gets talked about enough. Think about that. That's a head coach during the season going live in studio with Texas Hags, and he goes in there and just like guns blazing and just stirs the pot. That was wild.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff being thrown out around a lot of programs these days. Again, I'm not here to warrant what is true and what is not. I have, we all have suspicions. You start looking at splits and go, well, hey, half the league hit, 200 points higher in OPS at home than on the road. But then you don't know, is that, some of these teams, they play garbage opponents at home. They don't play any tough teams on the road. And then if you draw one of those schedules where you're only going to load 5 times a year, and you get the bottom half of the league, it's hard to tell. So I'm neither here nor there on how I feel about it. I just know that was Jim Schlossnagel sparked a lot of controversy with that comment. And I would like to see that locked down, whatever that looks like to people's to fit people's comfort level. But I'm not the tech guy, and I don't know what that looks like. So
I just thought it was funny. You never see coaches do that at any level in any sport. Could you imagine an SEC football coach do it like during the middle of the season, being like, this team cheats, this is what they do? I mean, that would be all over the internet. That would.
What do you have Connor Stallions last year?
Yeah,
we did have that.
There was that got a little play. So
Jim Harbaugh got suspended for 2 different things twice during the season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's a sign. It's a sign that, like, people are taking baseball more seriously now.
It is.
15 years ago, who cared about it? It was, Vanderbilt was starting to care. The Mississippi's cared. LSU cared. And Arkansas cared. And your list of programs after that was, it's, if you had a good season, maybe you had some fans show up at the ballpark, but it has gone to a much new level since the SEC network started showing all these games. And now that half the league's been to Omaha in the last 4 years, it's really taken off. But speaking of tournaments, Alfred, new SEC tournament format, tell us about it.
Yeah, I for one am excited about this. I first heard about this back during the SEC tournament, albeit, we had still a full NCAA tournament to worry about. So I kind of was like, oh, cool. And then just stashed it away in the file cabinet. But I'm pulling it back out just to talk about it a little. All 16 teams are making it, which is huge. So no more, 2 teams don't make it at the bottom of the conference, that sort of thing. All 16 teams make it. It will start Tuesday, 9 through 16. Those seeds will play each other. Obviously, it'll be 9 versus 16, 10 versus 15, going down all the way to 12, 13. Every game is single elimination. So once those games are done, the teams that get single buys are the 5 through 8 seeds. They'll play the winners of those respective games. And then so on and so forth. Single elimination Wednesday, moving on to Thursday, where we have 1 through 4 getting those double buys. And those will be quarterfinal games, single elimination all the way through. Semifinal Saturday, championship Sunday. Pretty simple when you just put it like that. It's just single elimination with single buys and then double buys if you finish at the top half of the conference. My thoughts on it, just, to look at it, I still think the one issue I think that'll pop up still, and the big complaint people get is teams that have a national seed locked up are not really going to care as much. I still think that's going to be a case here. I mean, I'll use Tennessee as an example. If Tennessee was the one in this new tournament format and they're sitting there until Thursday waiting for who they play, they could throw out, a bullpen game if they wanted to against Missouri, if Missouri had some kind of run all the way through that. And if Missouri beats them, they're like, oh, well, NCAA tournament coming up. I think, again, it's still going to be great for bubble teams that need sort of a big-time run to get into the NCAA tournament. I think it'll be great for fans, too, just because, it's almost like March Madness where it's one game you lose and you're done. And I think in that sense, fans will be, a lot more locked in. The games will be a lot more intense and stuff. Where it's, a single elimination game at night as opposed to, some a double elimination game at night where each team is looking for their first loss. They're still going to be in regardless. So I think from a fan perspective and a bubble team perspective, it sort of stays the same. I'm a little concerned, though, about the top 4 seeds. And really, if you want to go 5 through 8, if those teams have national seeds locked up, I'm concerned about whether or not they're going to really put forth, a concerted amount of effort to do it. It's just, I think it's a cool change. And I think it's from a just sort of perspective of it being single elimination. It's really nice to see because it makes games more exciting. But yeah, I still don't know what will happen for teams that are very much in the NCAA tournament that, may just not play as well.
Things that stand out to me. Number one, boy, I hope the weather cooperates. If you get rain, oh my goodness.
The first thing I thought is, what do they do if it rains? Because you got about the only thing you've really got built in is you could maybe play 4 on that Saturday, but then you got teams playing 2 games to get to Sunday. So I'm with you. That's the first thing I thought when I looked at it is God help them if they get rain. And it seems like they always do.
Yeah. That always happens. Other things that stand out to me, this is a win for the city of Hoover and the Birmingham area. Just 16 teams staying in hotels and restaurants. They got to be licking their chops. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you can kind of dust off. You remember the Ray Tanner special where he would just show up to Hoover and be like, this guy's going to start. And he's got maybe 1 start in 2 years in his career. And they just went over in the tournament. That's going to be easy for teams now in the driver's seat that are going to host, be a national seed, all that. If you just want to throw in the towel, you can definitely do that now.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's just that's the problem is now it's just one game, and that's going to be the biggest issue because I still think teams try to do that, but they get to a point where it's like, oh well, we're right there for a title, so why not? Let's just go for it now. Yeah, I mean, if you're the 1 seed, if I map it out here correctly, you can play that 16 seed or 9 seed or 8 seed. You have the benefit of the doubt of winning the game. And if that team's on a heater and you throw out again, a guy you would play in a midweek more often than not, you can easily see yourself just kind of waiting for the NCAA tournament, which really, if I'm going to be the realist about it, is the thing that takes top priority over this. And it'll be interesting to see how they address it. I think it's just good for to keep that tournament in Hoover for the time being and not have it anywhere else, because man, it's going to be everybody in the conference going there, which is just huge for fans. But the Ray Tanner special will be, I think, way more. It actually is probably going to be way more prominent, like you said, Graham, than it not being because of double elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Graham, you've always had to have, Lloyd, at least 4 games to win the tournament, or has there ever been a situation where it was 3?
Let me think.
Because let's see, what happened is if you were one of the top 4, you played Wednesday. You played a team that had played on a Tuesday, and then you played Thursday. And then if you won Friday, or if you won Thursday, you got a bye to, I don't remember. I feel like there was you earned yourself a day off in there with the win.
You did if you stayed on the winter side of the bracket. It's hard to keep track because they changed the format.
Yeah.
At post-COVID. Yeah, after COVID. So it's kind of, after a while, the longer you do this, everything just kind of blends in together. And
but I think in the 12-team format, you've always had to win at least 4.
Yes.
I think you have to win Wednesday, win Thursday, and then win Saturday and Sunday. So I guess that doesn't really change. I don't know that I'm crazy about that, but the most you can play now is 5. And I'm thinking you had some teams that have played 6 in the past.
Ooh, that's a lot.
I think.
Yeah.
Am I correct on that? Because you could play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, I mean, because if you lost in there somewhere, you lost your bike. So I think it did take at the time 6 games to win it. So I guess that's if you want to look at a positive, you shave 1 game off the worst case scenario. I don't know. I'm still, and you've seen teams that have done it both ways, right? Tennessee won a national title this year after winning the event. Vanderbilt won a national title in 2019 after winning the event. LSU won it, 2009 after winning the event. But then you've also had some number 1 overall seeds that didn't make it. Tennessee in 2022.
Yeah.
Although that was a super that it fell. And you don't see a lot of 1 seeds fall in the regional round, but you do see some of them fall in the super. So I don't know. There's part of me that, as much as I like going down there, it would just as soon do away with the whole thing, and get everybody rested. Yeah, or do something different. I don't know. Maybe
first of all, they would never do it because they make so much money.
No, they wouldn't. And look, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I enjoy being down there and seeing it. You see a lot of pro guys, but I do wonder about the wear and tear, especially on pitching at that point of the season.
Well, yeah, that part is very real, which is why Ray Tanner, white flag. I mean, we're gonna throw this guy who barely pitches at all, and whatever happens. So different coaches, different philosophies, but a big part of it, Alfred, you kind of touched on it. Once the game gets going and the competitive nature just kind of kicks in, I mean, these guys want to win. They're on the field.
Yeah.
So that's a real part of it, which is why what Tennessee just did very impressive. I mean, they just did the essentially triple crown, regular season, tournament, and national champs. That's hard to do.
Yeah, each game is going to be, I can't imagine every night game there. Unless you get a team like, I feel bad for saying this, but unless you get a team like Missouri, if you get a team that brings a good enough crowd in, the Mississippis, LSUs, Tennessees, Arkansas, those night games are going to be incredible just because it's win or go home type scenarios and stuff. I remember, for example, it was Vanderbilt, Mississippi State the first night I was there, and you had the Mississippi State crowd turned out really well, but on the Vanderbilt side, you could hear the whistler, and that was about it. And that was really because it was a double elimination game. And, it was, I remember, I think that game ended like 1 a.m. that time. So at that point, everyone was like, we'll see these teams tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And, that wouldn't be the case this upcoming year. I mean, it would be, the environment will be great and stuff, but I think that's the one great takeaway that I like about it from a fan side and from a Hoover side. It's just, I think it's the best they could have possibly have asked for. Obviously, I think teams, they're going to have to, they're going to address this way differently, whether it's, want to leave early or, continue and try to push a Cinderella run. But in the end, I think for the fans, that's a huge thing, is that it makes it that much better.
But I think the other thing too is the offensive additions have got something to do with it. There's more runs. It makes for more pitches, longer games, those types of things. I think if we were back to, the run scoring environment of, I don't want it back to 2014, where you needed a sledgehammer to hit the ball out of the park. But I don't think that where we're at is great either. I don't know if you could go somewhere in between 2018-ish, 19-ish, that feels better. And then all of a sudden, maybe your game's a little bit shorter. But yeah, I mean, I just feel I feel a lot of 2 a.m. endings coming in Hoover. And I've been in the press box for a few of those. Those are no fun
Not
for
fun.
anybody.
And
But
keep the run rule. Like, keep the run. That's
yeah,
big
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Last thing, Alfred, ballpark renovations postponed in Knoxville. I think there were some construction difficulties. Give us the update on that.
Yeah, for those of you who've been to Knoxville, it's not easy to build there if you've been to it, because it's not a lot of land. It's on hills and all this good stuff. That being aside, as far as Lindsey Nelson goes, the one part that I think they said they'd have finished is the right field section. If you've been to Lindsey Nelson, the right field section is a big porch patio area where mostly students go. I think they're adding a net and extra walling there. That'll be done. But everything else, as far as renovations to the mezzanine, the MVP room expansion, the concession areas around home plate, that sort of thing, I think it's going to take until 2026, which is what they said. Tennessee, I don't know if this is what I thought of as far as why this would happen, but they just got a big deal football wise. Neyland Stadium got a pilot gas station sponsor. They're going to have a pilot logo on the field. I think that's mostly for NIL money, and that school has the biggest vault, it feels like, of all time now when it comes to NIL money. They're stockpiling it by the dozen, and so that might have something to do with it. But regardless, I think it mostly is just going to be the right field side complete. The left field, they were planning to add a bar area. The left field, I think, they wanted to get the seating done as much as they could. More students are getting into Tennessee than before, so I think they wanted to make sure the student area was done, and then the left field side could wait. If you've seen the left field there as well, it's just like a high school bleacher area where they sit season ticket people in. It's not the grandest of areas, and they want to get that done, but I think they wanted to take the student priority first, which is what they're doing. So we're going to see part of it done for 2025, but there's going to be some ugly construction sort of aesthetics to Lindsey Nelson Stadium next season. And I mean, in the end, it'll be all worth it, I think. But at least for next year, when you watch games on TV, you'll see, who knows, bulldozers, that sort of thing on the left field side, where you're like, oh, what's going on over there? And it's just, it's just them holding out. And, I think biting off a little more they can chew. I mean, Lindsey Nelson wasn't the grandest of stadiums. When you look at the stadium itself, the crowd's great, but the stadium itself is nothing, like, compared to other SEC ballparks, it is nothing special. And so this needed to happen, but I do think it was like, whoa, this is, a lot more maybe than we figured, and it'll just take a little bit of extra time. And it was a time crunch to begin with. I mean, we're mid-August. You have to have this ready by February. I mean, at the beginning of February, to get it set up and everything at the very least. And that's really it. I mean, I just think, get what you need to get done, which is the student side, get the students in, and then worry about the left side where you really wanted to kind of, home makeover that section of the ballpark. And that's what they're going to wait on until 2026.
Graham, help me out here. I'm trying to think of Texas A&M's got what, $20 million of work to do. Am I dreaming that? I think that was a conversation which last name was Lee. I think they've got some work coming up. Georgia's got some work coming up.
Georgia.
I think they start this year. Vandy's doing something after 2025. We talked about Tennessee. Let's see, Florida just built a new ballpark not long ago. And A&M built that park, what was it, 10, 15 years ago? They're already doing renovations.
Nice. You get free ice cream there too.
Oh, man, I really. And given the name of the park, That's a sell here. That's if you never had Bluebell, you've missed out, my man.
Yeah.
If you work with Bluebell, we will take your sponsorship, but I will happily rep you. Just going to throw that out in the universe. So, let's see. Alabama's doing some stuff, I think, right?
Alabama, the new stadium within the past decade for them. Ole Miss, with everything that happened this past season, they committed before this past season started. They announced they were doing a $30 million renovation.
Yeah.
And then that has been put on pause. So it's kind of wait and see mode for that to see if they do anything and all that. So that's where Ole Miss is. Mississippi State, one of the nicest ballparks, in the country. If they're going to do anything, there's maybe a little bit of talk to add on to the condos there in left field, maybe go left center. Those are nice too. I went to one of those for the first time this past season. It is incredible. That's kind of what comes to mind just around the league. People are like, it's an arms race. You either renovate or you have to build from scratch, and with construction prices nowadays, that is easier said than done. When I read that the Tennessee was almost $100 million, that's for just a renovation, not a brand new stadium. That kind of blew my mind a little bit.
If you told me that 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, that they were going to do that, I would have never believed you.
Same. And to me, it shows you just where they are in the baseball right now. They are committed to not only Tony Vitello, but where they are with their NIL packages. And then, on top of that, the $100 million baseball renovation. And Alfred, you mentioned the pilot. I promise you, Tennessee's not going to be the only one to do that for sponsorship wise. That's going to be a normal thing moving forward.
Yeah, I feel like Tennessee, whether it's ballpark stuff, well, like wherever you put your money these days, feels like they've been as ahead of the curve as anybody. And it's shown. And hats off to Danny White. He's one of the sharpest dudes in the business.
Yes, it's been huge. I mean, it's really, he came in 2021 as AD, and everything's taken off from there. And it's just from whether it's on play stuff. I mean, Tennessee, not only in baseball, obviously baseball. Not only baseball, they're competitive pretty much in every sport, SEC wise at this stage in time. And it just goes to show how great that is. And, a little setback is not, the vision's there and it's going to get done. Again, it's just the only takeaway I have is aesthetically, it's Lindsey Nelson's going to look really weird in the left field side down where they really needed a clear house there. But at the same time, I mean, like you said, Chris, 10 years ago, they would have been like, we have stuff with Nealon or Thompson Boiling to worry about. Yeah. And Lindsey Nelson gets it's just something to do in the spring. So we don't really have to worry about it. Food City. Yes. Sorry. I keep forgetting.
They paid good money for that.
They did.
Disrespect them like that.
They did. The logo on the side of the building and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's just, they're catching up to it. Who knows? Lindsey Nelson's going to get some sort of sponsor as well, whether it be Casey's or something like that on their building too. And it's only going to help the team. And, I think, again, it's going to be worth the wait. Tennessee fans in 2026, when this happens, part of it will be done too, which is a huge thing. I mean, the part where the students are is massive. I mean, that's where you get the crowd factor most of the time is the students, and they'll have that side in left field done. It's just, or right field. I'm sorry. They'll have that side done in right field, but the left field side will have to wait just for a little bit. And I mean, they have a lot of stuff going on in general. So exciting stuff in Knoxville, just a little bit of a setback.
All right. That wraps it up for this edition of SEC Baseball Weekly. We'll be back next week to talk about, I don't know what yet. We'll figure it out. We always do. I told you guys, we'll probably have a 30-minute show today. So what happens? We've gone 49 minutes so far because we always find stuff to talk about. There's always stuff to talk about in SEC baseball if you got your eyes open and you're looking around. That's what we do here. If you like our content, we cover basketball and football in the SEC just like we do this. So we hope you'll make us a stop as a part of your SEC listening. Hope you do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you appreciate our content, tell a friend. For Alfred Ezman and Graham Doty, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.